Hello. We are officially, I think it's 4 weeks to Anime North. Oof, okay. This week we are doing the gloves and the boots, so I've got my fabric. I'm gonna do the kind of glove where it has the pieces in between because the stretch vinyl doesn't stretch enough to just do like the kind where you just trace your hand. She's got a little bit of like, it looks like string at the top of her glove, so I'm going to use just this stretchy cord and probably safety pin it on the inside seam so that I can take it off and not have it on the glove, so I can use the gloves for other characters. We're also going to do the boots this week, so I've got boots to cover. These were nice and cheap from the secondhand store, and we will end up gluing directly to these boots. These will become Aura boots specifically because they have that diamond cutout on them, which will be nice. It'll let my feet breathe, but also that means we have to cut a diamond into this. So, you know, once it's used for that, there's no real going back. I chose something with a heel, but a wedge heel to be more comfortable. I'm not too worried about my height because my Lugner who's going with me is 6'4", so I will look short regardless. I started off with the gloves, and the first thing I did was trace my hand and all the way up my arm. And I did it pretty tight. I did not trace my thumb, however, because after I traced my hands, I actually went and traced my thumb so that the outer edge was on a fold and cut that twice. And I also cut a big circle for the meaty part of my thumb. Then I went through and measured down each finger and created the in-between spots. I made these about 1/2 inch wide plus seam allowance, and numbered them so I knew which side connected to what finger. Then I cut everything out and it was time for sewing. Starting on one side of the glove, I sewed from the middle point between the fingers down one finger, then went back to the middle point and sewed down the other finger. I attached them all on one side to the glove. Then I went through and attached the other side of the glove doing the same thing. After that was done, I went down through the outside edge and the inside edge and sewed that all the way down. Then I put my hand in and see if there was any alterations that needed to be done. This is also when I marked the thumb. So I marked where the first knuckle on the thumb is down to the meaty part and just kind of made that an oval shape. I also took the time here to see if I needed to take in the glove any bits, because I did quite a bit need to take it in. Once that was done and it was fitting nicely, I cut out that oval that I had cut for the thumb. I sewed the piece of fabric that was the thumb together, then I popped that into that piece I had just cut out and sewed them all together. I can do a more in-depth tutorial if needed. And I repeated all those steps for the second glove as well. Then to finish off the top edge, I tried them on and marked where I wanted the finished top edge to go. I measured my elastic twice for the width and then cut at that mark. Then I just went through and zigzagged the elastic onto the wrong side of the fabric. At the very top edge, folded it twice and top stitched it all the way around. I made sure to use a stretch top stitch so that it wouldn't pop, but it would still look nice. And then it was time for the fiddly bits. So what I did was put on the glove, put the string where I wanted it to start, wrapped it around so that it looked right, and then cut where I wanted it to end, and then doubled that so I'd have both sides. Then I sewed a hook on each side of the string, and then I did a chain stitch on the glove in 2 sections side by side to be the hook, so that I could hook it on one side, wrap it around my arm, and then hook it back in, and it wouldn't pop out. And I just repeated that for the other glove. And then it was time to get started on the boots. So the way that I like to do this is I pull up my reference picture, I put on the shoe, and then drape the fabric on, pulling it taut to the amount of stretch that I like all the way up. You'll see I actually went back and tightened it up after it was set. And then I go through and I draw on all my marks on it so that I know what it looks like. Then I mark where all the pins are, undo the whole thing, and take it over to be cut. Apparently my camera was not recording when I cut everything out, but what I did was just even up all the sides and all the lines once it was laying flat. Make sure that on the seam line in the back they would actually match up. Then I cut out my boot twice, making sure to copy all the marks over. And I also cut along those seam lines. Now, because I knew I wanted about a ½ inch just under of seam allowance and about an inch or just under of a white bar, it actually worked that I didn't have to recut it. It was the perfect amounts. Then I cut strips of the white at 2 inches or just under that wide for all the in-between spots. I laid it all together and brought it over to sew. I started by sewing the diamond shapes, and then I went through and sewed together all of the boots all the way up so that it was one long piece. Then I came back and sewed up that back seam all the way, making sure that all of the white lines matched as closely as possible. I actually pinned them, which is how you know I was serious about this. Then I tried everything on. And when I was doing this, I was making sure it would actually lay the way I wanted to, and marking where the diamond was on the actual boot so that I could cut it out and make sure it would actually work. I also realized that I needed to take in the very top of the boot just a bit so it would stay better, so I marked that with a pin. And then I took off the boot carefully and then started gluing the boot down. Now, I used tape to hold this. I have fabric tape. What I found out was that it left a bit of goop behind when I took it off, which you'll see in a bit. I did go back after the filming and use Goo Gone on it, and it worked quite well. I just needed something to hold it down. The next day, once it had had a chance to actually dry, I went through and took in the back seam just to make that little bit tighter at the top, and then I sewed on my top binding. So I sewed it on, and then I added an elastic with a silicone grip to it so it would stick to my skin and really stay up. And then I folded it over and stitched it all the way down and around. I think it ended up looking really clean, and I'm very happy with how it looked. After that, I hand stitched the diamond all the way through the shoe and tried to make it as invisible as possible. So I used a leather needle for this, which is very sharp and pierces skin very easily, and it was hard to film and also hard to do because I was doing it from inside the shoe. Do not recommend, but it looked good in the end. The very last step was just trimming off any excess fabric around the sole of the shoe, because I always leave a little bit extra, and re-gluing any bit that looked like it was coming out. Now, in theory, I should have used a contact cement. I ended up using a crazy glue just because it was faster acting, and I'm impatient. And also that was this morning, so you know, it is what it is. It looks good now, and it will hold. And apparently my mic died, and I didn't realize it until after the costume was off. But basically, overall, I'm really happy. All that's left is the jewelry and wig. And also the side ties weren't quite perfect because I did them myself. When I have someone's help to do it, it'll be a lot easier. The boots look really good. They line up on the back, except for the very top seam that I had to take in. That's okay. The diamonds are slightly towards the inside, but it's not super noticeable. If I had taken more time, I might have gotten them better, but yeah, it looks really good. They are super comfortable, and overall, I'm really happy with how it's looking. There's that little gap between the boot and the skirt. Yeah, I think it looks really good. What do you guys think?